You're listening to the All-American Actors Podcast, episode 36. In today's episode, I'm talking with working voiceover actor Becky Boxer. She's sharing with us what it's really like to work in this industry and some of the cool jobs she's voiced over the years. That's coming up next. Ready to go behind the scenes and learn what it really takes to build a sustainable career as a working actor in the U.S. film and TV industry? Join me, Katherine Beck, your all-American accent coach, as I give you the insight and inspiration to take action on your career. Learn my best tips and tricks to performing with an American accent, and hear from working actors and other industry professionals to give you a comprehensive overview of this biz we call showbiz. This is the All-American Actors Podcast. Oh, I am so excited to speak with today's guest, but first I want to give a very big shout out to Christina, who says, I've just listened to the podcast and can't wait to start working with Katherine. Everything she has to say makes a lot of sense, and I believe she can help me sound like an American speaker. Also, to improve my diction and be more confident. Thank you so much, Christina. Such wonderful words, and I am definitely here for you both in the podcast and in my training programs to help support you and guide you to help you with your American accent. So thank you so much. And if you've been listening to this podcast and you're loving what you're hearing too, do me a favor and make sure you click the subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. Tap those 5 stars and leave a review. Just let me know what you think of this podcast. It really helps us out with those Apple reviews, so let us know, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. All right, today's guest, I met way back in my Chicago days. We went to college together and then reconnected back in LA. And she has worked both on screen and behind the microphone and has crafted a voiceover career for herself that's lasted more than 20 years. She's had an incredible and long-lasting career. Becky Boxer is here to share with us her story, not just all the good times, but the bad times, the ups and downs of the industry, and that's what it's really like to be a working actor, and she shares that with us today. From being the voice of California tourism to working in video games on Sims 3 to working in her home studio these days. I know you're going to get some really amazing value and insight into her journey, so let us begin. Welcome to the podcast, Becky Boxer. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So, Becky, why don't we start, if you don't mind, just telling our listeners a little bit about your background, who you are, how you got started in acting and voice acting and all the good stuff.
Okay. From Chicago. I moved to LA in 1997, right after I graduated college. And I was doing on-camera and voiceover. But I certainly always had a unique voice, and people were always commenting that voiceover would be my thing. And then I moved back to Chicago for a brief time when I was married. And I called up one of the agents in Chicago, and she happened to answer her own phone, which she never does. And she said she had a good feeling about me. And then I went and I booked my first national commercial the next day. So I booked a national, I know, it was insane.
What?
This was a long time ago. This was now we're talking 20 years or so ago. And so I really lucked out. And then I booked a few things after that. And then I was on my way, and she had a reciprocal relationship with William Morris in LA. So when I was moving back, and they had someone booked originally on that campaign that I booked. And then I booked it off them. So he was like, all right, you want to come here? And so then I just kind of walked in there, and they just signed me. And I was there for until they closed last year. I was there for about 20 years.
Wow. Was it that long? 20 years?
I mean, I started in with William Morris. I'm trying to think, in January 2003. So it's not 20 years, but that's so I was there 18 years.
It's impressive.
I mean, it's kind of once you're there, I feel like they're not tossing it, they feel, I think there's loyalty. Plus the agent there is from Chicago. So I always felt like he felt loyal to his Chicago people.
He did. He had a nice little Chicago following.
Yes, he did. And we were all kind of tight too,
Well, that's really interesting. So do you remember what that first national job, that voiceover was that you booked?
Sure. Yeah. It was for craft dressing.
Did you work for Kraft even more then after that? Because I feel like later on you were doing
I've done other stuff from them, but that was the big campaign I had for them. I've done other littler stuff, but not in a minute. It's been a minute since I've worked for Kraft. But at the beginning, I had Kraft right off the bat, which was amazing.
Well, I know some of our listeners, the ones in Australia would have heard your voice in your California tourism campaigns, because I know
Yes,
I've heard you out here.
I was the voice of California tourism from 2000 and I think 5 until the pandemic. They kind of stopped advertising and they put me on like a hold. But it was a very awesome long run as the voice of California. It was awesome. Awesome gig, very quick. They were very loyal. They told me I'd have it as long as they were doing that style campaign. And they were, until the pandemic, they changed up their style now, but they really were incredibly loyal, which is rare in this industry to have someone be so loyal. And it allowed me to make my SAG insurance every year for a long time.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's very helpful out there. And so you've done a lot of work in commercials. Are there any other areas that you work in terms of voiceover?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've done a little bit of everything. Definitely some promo, network promo, and I also have done games, and I now have my first cartoon after a lot of cartoon auditions. It was a lot of hard work. I mean, literally like 20 years of cartoon auditions. I finally, of course, through someone I knew, my friends who were working for them, threw them at a party, because it is always about who you know. And realistically, I got to send them my demo. And after auditioning with them for like 2 years, I finally got a series. It's non-union, so it's not like I'm like banking it, but I'm really stoked because it's a great character, a great superhero character, and it's something I wanted to do for a long time. It's
That's
ongoing.
so exciting.
I'm really stoked about it.
Well, a big congratulations, because I know when we were at William Morris together, we were auditioning a ton for animation, and you always had such a great voice. And I think you did come close to some stuff, I remember.
You were William Morris too? I did not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for a blip, because I did something sort of similar to you. I also moved back to Chicago for a period and was doing voiceover there. I was studying at Second City, and then when I decided to come back, I sent our past agent my demo, and he signed me up. It was that whole Chicago connection. So, but it was one of those things. It was like it depended on what time of the day you would go in for your auditions to the booth. We're all different times. But yeah, I was there for a bit and loved the experience. I thought it was really great. It was different because, you're in a massive agency when you're at William Morris. But I do remember you getting close to some of those
Yeah,
jobs.
no, I always got close to stuff, but
Yeah.
it's a different issue. They really use the same people for everything. It's very hard to break in and get an opportunity unless, like, I went to a party with these people. I met these people at a party through my friend. You know what I mean? Like, and that truly seems to be the way that you can get ahead here. I mean, after all these years, I really think that most job opportunity I've gotten have been through people I've met.
Yeah. Well, that is really exciting. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I was in The Sims for 5 years, and that was through a legit audition. I did not know what I was doing. It's all gibberish. It's an international game. It's all gibberish, though. So I literally thought about like those gibberish games we did in college, like improv games, and
Yep.
I just tried it. And they were like, they even tell me after, they're like, well, you weren't the best, but you seemed fun to work with. And I was like, okay, cool. So like that friendship even ended up helping me do that game for a while. I was Sims 3 and they're on Sims 4 now. So it was a bit ago. It was like 10 years ago.
Amazing. So, what is that like? Because that's one area that I've actually never worked in for voiceover is video games. I've done a lot of animation series and that sort of stuff, but not for video games. So, how does that differ?
Okay, well, having just worked on my first series now, I don't have any experience in series. Um, and I've just done a few episodes, so I don't know if I really have an answer to that. But also, a lot of the gaming that I've done has been not in any language because Sims is gibberish. So it's just like abadaba skumanama. It's like you make it up. And then like recent games I've done, like in Resident Evil, I was zombies. So it's not like I had
Mm.
lines for that.
So,
And I did.
is it more okay? So, then is it more efforts and actions and that
Yeah,
sort of things that
yeah.
you're contributing to the voice that you're
Yeah,
creating?
I guess so. But then I guess in this animated series, I'm doing lots of efforts as well, you know? But
Yeah.
I definitely, a big part of the games that I've done have been efforts. And for Sims, it's like very specific, but you were literally gibberishing through actions. Um, but yeah, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, you obviously have more experience with animation, but it sounds like similar.
It is similar in animation, especially something like if you're playing a superhero, for example, there's going to be a lot of action-y sort of scenes. So you are still going to have to do those different types of efforts and, taking punches or throwing punches or zooming through the air or whatever it might be for your character. So there is still a lot of that involved, but I guess they're probably pretty similar and
Yeah.
yet very different in terms of maybe the format and the style of directing or the way they put the voices together. I don't know. I can't really comment
Yeah.
because it's the same. I haven't been in video games, so I only know
It seems
TV
similar,
animation.
like the same to me, basically, except that with the series, like I know they bought a bunch of episodes, so it's ongoing, and most of my games have been 1-day sessions, maybe 2. And then Sims was fun. Sims was a crazy experience. That was like so unique. But usually it's just like a day, like a one-off.
Yeah, right. Okay. And so when you did the video games, did you record with other people in the studio? Is it similar in that regards to?
You know what? Because of the pandemic, I've only recorded the animated series with nobody else in the
Yeah.
studio. So I
Yeah.
don't. So yeah, pretty much alone. I've only recorded stuff alone. The only time I've ever been with a group is for Zombieland 2. I did zombie voices. I did like a bunch of the zombies in it, and so there was like a team of us doing zombies in there. But that's really the only time I've ever, unless it's like a commercial with a couple people. But I've never really recorded with anyone else otherwise.
Mm. And are you still doing on-screen acting as well?
No, I stopped doing that. I did it for a while. I felt like it wasn't very good for my mental health. I think it's really
Mm.
challenging, and I did a few movies where I mean, to be honest, I did a few movies where I was nude, and then that was really the only opportunities I was getting, and I
Mm.
just didn't feel like it was like certainly not what you train all those years for. I'm nothing
Yeah.
proud of it that I was in Jarhead, which was like like that was a big movie, and I'm super proud of it. And I just realized that that was not the path that I really felt good about going down. And voiceover hit, and it was like, why am I putting myself through this other stuff when I can do this, which feels so much better, like in LA, like you have to drive to all those auditions, and it's takes forever. Whereas voiceover is like a one and done, which is also kind of nice too.
I can totally relate. I think that's the reason why I was drawn to voiceover and put my on-screen acting career to rest as well. Is the less hours on set. It's less about what you look like, and it's so much fun to be in front of the microphone creating with your voice. There's nothing like it.
Also, not to forget that like as we are now women that are like of a certain age, it's the opportunities are much less. I mean, it's like I feel like once I got into my 30s, people, it was like, well, the range of roles you could play were so much less, too,
Mm.
which is unfortunate, but just part of it.
Yeah, it's true. So, what do you love about voiceover? What's your favorite part about being in the industry?
I mean, I guess the feeling when you get it, that's the best feeling, right? It's like because it's like
Yeah.
playing the lottery and you get one. I do like doing. I really like doing these charactery things. I've had some really fun characters I've gotten to do. So I really enjoy that. Um, it's fun to see yourself in something, although rarely that happens. But it always felt good when those California tourism commercials were on, where to be like, oh, yay, it's on. And definitely when I've made money, um, and long ago now, but when I used to make really good money doing this, that felt really good too.
Well, I'm very excited to see this animated series. I hope I can see it out here. I think that sounds really cool. You have to let me know.
Okay.
And so, what about like, do you ever do anything in audiobooks? Or there's so many different facets of voiceover. I know audiobooks is one area I have to say I'm not as intrigued about. I think some voiceover artists, that's their thing. Like, that's
Yeah,
their
and
niche.
they make consistent living doing it, but you usually
Mm.
have to edit it yourself and record it yourself. Most studios do not have you come in. So that means that not only do you have to read the whole book, you have to edit it yourself. And my friends who do it only when they have to, when they need the,
Mm.
because it is so time consuming. Plus, you're sitting in a little room for like, I mean, think about how long it takes to read a book,
Yeah.
and then if you mess up and you have to go back and you're sitting in your little booth all those hours. And I just think it sounds really depressing, honestly. I love listening to audiobooks, but I'm like,
Yeah, I think you probably have to be a real book lover, just an avid book reader to be one of those voice actors that does audiobooks because it's a whole nother thing.
kids' book.
Yeah.
I could see that
Kids'
being
books.
that would.
Yeah.
I have some friends who do that, and kids' books I could see being fun because they're short, but like those long. That's a lot of time alone in a closet.
Yeah. So tell me about your closet. What's your voice booth like?
So I lucked out. I am subletting an apartment, and the guy who lived here before was an actor at William Morris as well, and he was handy, so he built a booth in this freaking apartment. So I moved in, and all I had to do was put my mic in, and it's. I mean, I've worked now with the pandemic. I've worked in it so many times and have had no complaints, which is amazing because my building's from like the 30s, and like when the toilet flushes, I can hear it in my booth if someone flushes the toilet above me. But I've just lucked out, and I have not had a problem the whole pandemic with it. And it's been a lifesaver. I mean, really, he did a good job he figured it out. He figured out how to take this closet and pull everything out and soundproof it and make it so it's a usable booth.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he really good job.
And what sort of microphone do you have?
I have I always forget what it is. MKH, Sennheiser, the studio standard. I have to get
Yeah.
up and get it. It's
Yeah.
the Sennheiser 416 MKH.
I think that's yeah.
It
A
was
lot of
someone
people
once
like
told
that
me
one.
someone once told me it was studio standard and that it would sound good with my voice being deep. So
Mhm.
I was like, all right, I just got that one. I had a Rode before, but I guess with different mics resonate differently with your voice.
Totally. Yeah. The Rode works really well with my voice. I get a lot of compliments when I do auditions or jobs from home. They love it. So it's so interesting how microphones pick up the voice different. And you just got to kind of like play around and find which one works really well for you.
I definitely took people's advice when I had people say, if you got I had several people say, if you got this mic, it would sound really good with your deep voice. And it was like, okay, then that's definitely
Yeah.
the mic to get.
You do have such a great voice. I've always loved your voice.
Thank you.
Are there certain types of auditions or roles that you tend to get with your voice?
I mean, I think with the on camera, that was part of the problem is that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I have this raspy kind of smokery sounding voice was one of the reasons the roles that I was getting offered were sexy kind of roles, party girl roles because of my voice. So it was limiting in that capacity. I remember when I was younger and looked very young, and I'm sure when you were out here too, we were in our 20s, and I'm sure you and I went on a lot of the same auditions, and you have a much higher voice. But I literally would have casting directors shut me down. They'd be like, "You're not reading for an 18-year-old. You do not."
Mm.
I literally have one cast. It was one of the funniest stories. I went in for a role, and she was supposed to be a virgin. And I opened my mouth for 2 minutes, and she's like, "It's so nice to meet you, but there's no way you can play a virgin." And I was like, "Okay. I mean, you want me to read?" She's like, "No, you don't have to read. You can go." I was like, "Wow!" And all I said,
Wow.
"Becky, nice to meet you." But I mean, that really shows you that your voice, your voice does influence your on camera. I mean, it really did influence my on camera for sure. And voiceover, obviously, it influences too. One of my good friends does a lot of stuff, and she has a much higher pitched voice. And there are things that I can't do that she can do. I just don't have the range.
So, in terms of character creation for voiceover, what sort of range does that give you then?
Well, I do a lot. I've really been into the evil stuff. I've been like doing a lot of zombies, and like.
Can you give us an example?
My zombies are like.
That's a really good zombie voice.
Yeah, I did it in Zombieland too. I was the only girl in the zombie cast because I think it's a fairly probably terrible for my voice, but difficult thing to do. And so I've done quite a bit of that. And then I've done other evil ones. I can kind of bring in that evil thing down here with my voice. So I'm getting more evil stuff. Definitely like most of what I've booked over the years has just been me talking like for commercials, just like they just want like a real person. And I kind of can do the real person thing.
And I think also you've got that authority with that depth in your voice, which works really well for commercials. They want that, if it's a voice for a product, for example, that voice that is relatable, conversational,
Yeah.
that person next door, but that also has the authority to go, I'm going to listen to that person.
And usually, like, there's like in a lot of female roles, there's like a little bit of sarcasm, especially when it's a male female like couple situation, because the guys are typically portrayed as like stupid. It's so weird if you look at scripts, commercial scripts, and the women are usually like smarter and a little sarcastic. And I think that kind of speaks to that as well, being able
Yeah.
to. But on the opposite side, I know I don't sound like this typical mom. Like when I try to audition for Pampers, the chances of me getting something like that are pretty rare. I
Yeah.
think, and one of the reasons I was California is because I'm California, but like put me in a Pampers commercial and you'd be like,
They'd be going for a voice more like mine.
you're right, and your voice.
Right.
Mine is much more like the edgy, like that edgy kind of voice. And I'm really finding it challenging trying to now that a lot of things call for millennial sound and
Mm.
millennial. And I'm really been trying to listen to TV and popular media and try to pick up the voice speech patterns of millennials because so many things now they want out of the mouth of the current youth. It's interesting. It's a different
That
speech pattern.
is okay. So that's interesting. So, what would that be? Millennial voice.
A millennial voice. I mean, it's I'm like not trying to offend any millennials, but like in the voiceover world, a millennial voice tends to be pretty flat and like very like unaffected by things. If that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yep.
So
Yep.
drama's removed. Kind of like harder to impress. Like you just kind of like I think flat is a simplifying way to say it because it's just like and then a lot of the speech pattern, it kind of goes up at the end. Like if you listen to like a lot of people in popular media today, I mean, and then like the Kardashian being like the extreme example of like going up at the end. But if you can like minimize that's kind of got a millennial sound, but it's definitely like an unimpressed sound. It's definitely like, yeah, I'm reading your commercial spot and your product's pretty cool, but like, you know,
Yeah.
still, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of spots call for it. And it's like, it's really not about how old you sound. It's about that like,
It's the attitude. It's
attitude.
the,
Yeah.
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 Which is
Oh, that's
insane.
interesting.
Yeah. I've been trying to get that.
Yeah. Get that. Get that into your repertoire.
Exactly. It's definitely called for a lot lately.
Oh, well, that's good to know. So, what's next on the books for you? So, you've got this animated series. Is there any, in terms of, it's always fun to set goals for ourselves in terms of voiceover. Like, is there any part of the industry you feel like you haven't really tapped into? Is there someone that you would want to work with? Maybe an animated movie or something like that?
I've tapped into lots of parts and then I've untapped into them. I was a few networks. I was the voice of for a while, so I would definitely like to be the voice of a network again. That was really fun. That was a great experience. And of course, like doing a game and being like a major character, and it would be wonderful. Um, I mean, and of course, like you want the union. I mean, what part of the problem right now in America is that a lot of gigs have gone non-union. So whereas it was relatively easy to make a live, not easy, strike that. Where I had an easier time making a living as a union with only union jobs for a long time. Now I've gone FICOR, which means that I can do union and non-union because the amount of non-union auditions is insane. Like I get every day, let's say I probably get 20 auditions a day. Let's say
Wow.
a day, roughly. Trying to think how many I've had so far today. I think I've done 13 today so far, and I've got a few waiting for me. So let's say out of those 20, one is union or two.
Mm.
And the rest are non-union. And it's really interesting because when it's union, you can make a living off of it. I mean, and you get insurance, which is wonderful. And when it's non-union, I'm grateful that I have a team that can negotiate for me a decent rate. But it's much harder to make a living, man. It's much harder. And the thing is that the direction things are going, I have it like right after this, I'm going to go read for a very huge soda product that is non-union now.
Wow.
And so you go, okay, so this job is going to give you now they're going to say, oh, we're going to pay you out $2,500. But that job would have made you 40 grand a couple of years ago.
Yeah. That's
It's wild. It's
crazy.
really crazy, but it's really because there's such little amount of union work. The people who are the big names, particularly with animation, are the ones they're going to give it, the terrorist, I'm strong. The people who are the names are going to get these big union roles. And then it's just been a really huge change in the last 2 years. I mean, my Eric, who you know, who's
Yeah.
now my manager at ACM, he was like, do you want to work or do you want to wait for the big gigs? And, it's like, we love what we do. We want to work. So I'm like, I want to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
I've worked more than I've worked in a long time, and it's harder to make a living than it's ever been.
Well, it's good for everyone to hear that because the industry is always changing. And I think we have to set ourselves up for that. And it really is about doing what you love to do. And if you can't imagine, doing something else, if this is what you absolutely love, then you fight for it and you do the union, you do the non-union, whatever's going to get you by. But it's true. It's a tough industry, and it's not for everyone.
So many of my peers we made a living doing this for years. I mean, I made a living doing it for years. And then in the last few years, it's just these non-union gigs, just the pay is so different. It really, really has made it more challenging.
Wow.
And I would also encourage any young talent to not necessarily jump right in the union because whereas you used to have to kind of jump into the union in order to really be valued as a professional, certainly in Los Angeles, it's just that's not the case anymore.
So that's really changed now.
It's really changed. However, if you ask someone in the union, like who isn't FICOR, like they're very much discouraged what I've done.
Sure.
Definitely you're looked kind of have like a scab thing, but it really comes down to like, do you want to work? Or do you want to work once a year for that union gig and hope it's a good one? Or do you want to work? I work almost every week.
Yeah.
It comes down to what you need and what works for you. And I think that people have strong opinions on it here, very strong opinions on it. And that's what it has to be what works for you. And that's what I kind of realized worked for me.
Definitely.
So I don't really know about union people, but I'm sure their opinion is it differs,
Yeah. No, but that all makes sense. You were mentioning young talent, and I'd be curious to know, because you've been in the business for such a long time, if you were looking back to when you first started out and to those new actors that are contemplating getting into voiceover, what advice would you give them?
I think the first thing I would know is that I'm going to give up a lot of things. If you're going to make this your main job, the reality is, and this is where I get slightly depressing, but very honest, I'm a 46-year-old woman. I don't have children. I'm not married. My career's been everything my whole life, and I'm struggling to make a living. And I think that is the reality for so many of my peers in voiceover. And yeah, some are married and some have kids, but I got to tell you, for the people that I know that have made this their life the last 20 years, you give up a lot. And I think I don't know if I would have, I think as if my younger self, I don't know that I would have dedicated my life to it this long to not make a living, knowing that I would be giving up those things.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth. So I would tell younger talent to really know that you're ready to give it all up for this. Because if you're not, you will look back at your life and go, holy crap, I gave up all these things for this. And not to say you can't have both, but to really give it 100%. I mean, I am in that booth. I start at 8 in the morning and I go till 8 every night with auditions. And I take like an hour workout break. That's the reality of voiceover if you want to work. And it does not allow time for much else.
That's that's a lot of really great information, especially for actors that are over your way or contemplating moving over there. It's a totally different world, here in Australia as well. We don't get nearly as many auditions as you get. And I think it's important for people to know the ins and outs of it. And the fact that you're in your studio that much in the day auditioning, I had no idea. Wow.
All day. It depends who you're repped by. Because
Yeah,
if I
of course.
did management and agency, I would not have as many. But in the last 20 whatever years I've been doing this, I mean, I've always had several hours of auditions a day. I definitely feel people that it has to be the focus, man. And they want to hear that from you too. They want to know that you're willing to give it all up for it. You know what I mean? It's kind of a really tricky situation. I would say if it's the only thing you've ever wanted to do and you want it that bad, go for it. And if not, really, really think about your life in total and what you want out of life. LA's really gotten very expensive and cost of living is very high and the jobs aren't paying as much. So, and you can do them from anywhere. No one cares where you are anymore. I mean, I can see the time difference for you is obviously a big thing, but like I could be in Chicago and still doing all the same jobs, it doesn't, LA's not what it doesn't matter like it did now with technology, That's some
Correct.
advice too, because people think they have to rush out here and be in LA, but that's setting yourself up for a very difficult world. Everyone has, that's one more thing. Now I'm like, I do have things to say. If you're going to do this professionally, you need to have Source Connect. That's what everyone's using now. ISDN was the thing, but no one cares about ISDN anymore. It's going the way of the dinosaurs. In fact, you can't even, I called to try to get it, and a few other friends did, and they don't even offer it anymore at a lot of
Wow.
places. So, but Source Connect is, you can do on your computer. You know what? It's interesting to set up Source Connect for people who are gamers who game with other gamers.
Yeah.
I don't know what the word is. Live gamers. You have to open up certain ports on your internet so that you can live game with other people. And basically, this Source Connect does the same thing. It opens it up so that you can be doing these live sessions. They can click on in, and I'm not technical, but you can be doing these live sessions from wherever you are. But it's also something people can do. It's not something to be intimidated by. I am no tech wizard, and I figured it out. So I feel like if you're going to try to do this, you have to have a way to record live, because sometimes little gigs will be like, yeah, we'll give you $100 to record this and send it in. But the big gigs want to be able to record with you live, and people aren't in studios like they used to. So you have to have it in your home.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, that's a lot of really great information and advice. I really appreciate it, Becky. And it's been so wonderful catching up with you. And I know my listeners can't see your face, but it's great to see your face. I haven't seen it in so many years. And I really appreciate you sitting down to talk with us. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm I'm really glad I did. I'm happy to share this knowledge with other young actors. And I wish I had a little more, I was a little more educated when I started, for sure.
Indeed. Yeah. It's good to have the education. And I think what you've shared today has been excellent. So thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely. Be well. Take care. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you so much, Becky, and I can't wait to hear your voice in your first animated series. And remember, if you're an actor and you've been thinking, you know what, I'm ready to start working on my American accent, then go ahead and check out my free guide, which walks you through my step-by-step process on how to master the all-American accent. It's yours, it's free. Just head over to katherinebeck.com/accent. And remember, if you love this episode, go ahead, let me know, take a screenshot of the show, share it with me on Instagram story, and tag me in it at Katherine_Beck_. You can find me there. If you've got any questions or topics you'd like to hear on this podcast, send me a DM and let me know. And coming up next week on the show, I am concluding my voiceover series here on the podcast with my own insights into the voiceover biz, as I share my voiceover journey with you and what I've learned along the way. Now make sure to share this show with all your actor friends, let them know what's coming up next week, and invite them to tune in with you and learn how to become an all-American actor so you can be the working actor you dream to be. Until then, go practice your American accent, and I'll see you back here next time.